Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. Today we're talking just kind of the FGC in general, and specifically the FGC as a whole is just kind of cheesed off, a little bit ornery, if you will. There's always something going on in the FGC, and we've certainly been covering it in the last few days on the channel. But the issue is not just like any one thing really going on, is that just about every major fighting game title, there's something going on that has people like concerned for one reason or another. Like, we may now be in the golden age of the Street Fighter 6 calorie contest mode on Switch 2. That's what you're looking at right now. It's the new gimmick party mode. But yeah, like, for just about every major title, there's some stuff going on. The big, long-awaited, long-anticipated Tekken Season 2 patch. The only way to call this is basically an unmitigated disaster. And not only that, with a bunch of unforced errors on top of that. Over in Street Fighter land, people are very confused and frustrated at a complete lack of communication on exactly what's going on with Season 3, Elena, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's coming, sure, we'll get there eventually, but, you know, people aren't happy about waiting around. Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, we got another real-world guest character, and people already had issues with the first one, and now we got a second one. Hey, people aren't necessarily fans of that. 2XKO, long awaited, very long awaited, very long anticipated. Then we'll have launch later this year, unless they delay it again. And only 10 characters? A lot of people are scratching their head. What's going on with that? How is like one of the biggest gaming companies in the world only getting 10 characters out at launch for a tag game of all things? I decided an NRS example, but the NRS community is always angry. So like that tap never turns off, honestly. So yeah, kind of across the broad spectrum here, people are just kind of sassed up, right? People aren't happy. You know, makes people feel like maybe the time of the golden age is coming to an end, or at least cooling off a little bit. So I figured we just kind of talk about all these subjects and just go over what's exactly happening everywhere. So let's start with Tekken 8, because that's definitely got the most amount of people mad. And it doesn't seem like not too long ago, you know, things were pretty alright. People were pretty happy with everything going on in Tekken land. Like, sure, we all had problems with Tekken 8 and like something like, okay, power crushes that were also heat engagers, like armored heat engagers. Those were annoying. Okay, sure. But like, you know, Tekken 8, a bit more aggressive than some people would like. Sure, okay, but you know, first year for a game. First year for the game's never the best year. But overall, the first year for Tekken 8 mostly kind of worked out. Like, Rangchu won Tekken World Tour Finals with a bear. To me, that reads like we're on the correct timeline. Good times are ahead. If a bear can win, anyone with two hands has a fighting chance. And then, hey, we have Anna's DLC. Anna's super popular, very anticipated character. That's great. Season 2 will fix everything that's wrong with the game. We're going to have more defensive options, better defense to help counteract all this crazy offense stuff. And then, well, hey, you kind of know how that one turned out, right? If you didn't catch the last video where we talked about Tekken, the two major issues I highlighted of both Jack and Paul, both of those are getting emergency patched, by the way. It might take like 2 weeks, but the fix is coming. Problem is, there's a lot more problems than that. Like, yeah, maybe the Jack and Paul stuff is especially egregious, but they kind of just changed the core of what the game is the problem. Once again, if you're unaware, that whole buff defense promise, they quadrupled down on offense instead in reality. Like, you're seeing this post from Nee here, like even the most legendary players associated with your game have like kind of full on turned on the game. Like, this is so much more than like that Paul unblockable or Jack you're unable to get out of the one string. The problem is they kind of reduced how the game played. They almost like simplified the game plan by giving so many characters so wildly overpowered moves and strings. Offense is now so strong where basically in most scenarios with most characters, like everything just kind of becomes a coin flip or going to the casino, as people are saying now. So many of these new moves that are added, and it's awesome that they added new moves. That's great. That's commendable even, right? But like, it makes me wonder how much time, you know, did they give this for balance passes? Did they test this out too well? Because it reduces the game, right? Like, you might have made aspects where like stepping might be better, right? Or sidewalking might be better in certain scenarios. But now there's so many more new tracking moves, so many moves that are like very advantage on block, where once you finally get on your heel, you might be on your heels for the rest of the round, because like there's now increasingly fewer options for you thanks to the power of these new moves other than hope you blocked right, buddy. And it certainly sucks, but you know, you listen to the community and maybe we can kind of turn the boat around, right? We can course correct on the errors that have been made. Harada did make a post. It's clear to me that the result is a disconnect between what the community wants and the tuning results. We have our battle and tuning team working around the clock to read through all the feedback logs from the community and work on future policies and changes for the better. Okay, so that part of the messaging, fantastic, great. But a little bit of a case of right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So Harada puts out a good positive message. Michael Murray, one of the main producers over at the Tekken project, is blocking everyone who has any kind of negative criticism about the game. And like, hey, I get it. It's Twitter. Like, you need to block people for your mental health sometimes, right? But not when it's like high-level community people and their criticism is both constructive criticism and very respectful, right? They're not just, launching slurs at you over Twitter. So that's not a good look. It doesn't help the cause. It's what we call an unforced error. Like, Tekken 8's going to be around for years to come, right? And this might be one of those things, like, say, Street Fighter V. Early days of Street Fighter V was not good. But by the end of Street Fighter V, we got there, right? And Tekken 8 certainly starting off a damn sight better than Street Fighter V was. So maybe later on in Tekken 8's life, we look back at this specific time and we laugh like, man, remember that? That was messed up. Only problem is you gotta work your way to get there. It's not going to be free. It would seem that the only real way around the current problems is going to be a lot of hard work and effort and just really understanding what the community really wants out of the game, because what has been offered in Season 2 as it currently stands isn't it. If people could go back to Season 1, they probably would. Doable with hard work and effort, absolutely, and the only real main thing is just make sure about the communication, right? Don't ghost people, don't have your high-level people that are very public-facing block people, especially people offering, respectful, constructive criticism. More honest and open-faced posts like what Harada was doing. That's kind of stuff you need. And just make sure you're with people every step of the way. And you know what? It sucks now, sure. We'll get there in the end. Because they want a good product, right? If you don't have a good product, you don't keep making sales. And it's not good for anyone, so it's in their best interest to make sure people are happy. We'll get there in the end. Even if it might take a hot minute. So, Street Fighter. I feel extra prescient because I made that Mai video a few weeks back, and now a lot of people are really starting to complain about Mai. But you know what? Season 3 is around the corner, so it should be no issue. Except the one issue. Remember we just talked Tekken, and hey, maybe communication is the answer? We don't get that with Street Fighter so much anymore these days. We'll never miss a Battle Pass trailer. Those, you can set your watch to those. But when it comes to any kind of communication of what's going up in the near future, who knows? Elena is the next character. And we had a lot of what would seemingly be guaranteed dates, smart times to showcase the trailer when you got an audience, and miss. Nothing. And maybe it'll be at the Red Bull Kumite now? It's kind of the last big deal for Street Fighter 6 before EVO Japan anyways. You didn't use the Capcom Cup, which seemed like an easy opportunity. You didn't use the Nintendo Direct, seemed like an easy opportunity. Kumite will pull in an audience. Red Bull's got a lot of pull, got a lot of sway. They can even get big names like rooflemonger to help work the Kumite events, right? So big deal. Just people are getting antsy, right? Because it feels like it's about time, especially if you compare year to year. Elena is our final DLC character of Season 2. So last year, Akuma was the final DLC character of Season 1. And they aired this trailer and got everyone very, very hype. And this was over a year ago, a year and a month ago to be specific. So in comparing apples to apples, you could then argue that we're overdue for the Elena trailer, the World Tour teaser at least. It won't be as epic as Akuma's, it can't live up to it in that way, but people just want to see the friggin' trailer, right? You don't gotta release her immediately, but you gotta do something. To add to that, however, though, we do have the schedule up for the new Capcom Pro Tour season, and everyone is saying, well, okay, first stop is EVO Japan, early in May, and Elena and Season 3 have to be out before then. And now it's well, geez, if we're going to be waiting this long, will it? Who knows? Now, okay, I'm just going to get all the way real with you, okay? Realistically, however long this takes, it could be next week. Elena could be out 2 weeks from now. I don't know. She could be out 2 months from now. Who knows? We'll eventually get what we want out of this. We'll get our trailers. We'll get our hype. We'll get the character. We'll get our patch. And then everyone will be happy for a while, right? Capcom will put food in our bowl. And we'll be happy for a bit until this happens again. And that's the problem. We're heading into the 2-year anniversary of the game now, and the problem keeps being lack of communication, lack of communication, lack of communication. Which is certainly not new and not unheard of in fighting games. The problem was, though, Capcom used, keyword used, to be the gold standard for communication in fighting games. Later era Street Fighter V, when they were finally correcting the ship, getting things good again, we used to have seasonal updates, and they would tell us everything that's going on. Not just like, here's the new DLC, but like, here's everything about Street Fighter you can expect for the future until the next update, basically. And it was awesome. It was fantastic. It was somewhat unprecedented almost, really, at least on this large of a scale. Like, NRS does the combat cast. I love those, but they mostly just exist. Here's the next DLC character. Tekken has the Tekken Talks, which are good too, but half of those is just like shilling, buy the new action figure, buy the new watch, or like, it's like merchandising is half of it. So like, these, what Capcom put out was like the absolute gold standard for everything, right? And then they turned the ship around in Street Fighter V. It was awesome. These seasonal updates played a very big part in it. And then comes Street Fighter 6, because Street Fighter 6 launched good. Launched a lot better than Street Fighter 5, that's for sure, right? And I guess somewhere along their line, they were like, well, good enough. We didn't have a bad launch, so I guess we don't need to do this anymore. And that's it. Like, we complained about costumes so long, and after like literally like months and months and months and months, they put out a tweet saying, okay, yeah, we're working on new costumes. Bugger off. And that's about the best we can hope for now, which is frustrating. I hold Capcom to a higher standard on this compared to other companies because they used to do better than the other companies, and now they don't. So yes, again, eventually we'll get the DLC character trailer, we'll get patch notes, and the cycle begins again. But the problem is the cycle will begin again. Like, I would like to see more real change from Capcom, at least on the communication front. You don't got to give us the world, you don't got to spoil the surprises, but you gotta give us more than you're giving us, basically, is what I'm trying to say. That's the real root of the problem. Like, say the costume problem, right? Months and months and months about complaining about costumes. If you just put out a tweet saying, yeah, we're working on Monster Hunter. And like, that's kind of what everyone figures now. Okay, you're working on Monster Hunter, sure. But if you put out a tweet saying we're working on Monster Hunter, stuff's hard, when that's done, we'll get back to it, would have solved a million problems before they got started. Like, I was capturing this footage to show in this video, right? And I got nostalgic just remembering how great these seasonal updates were, and I wish we could go back to it. So that's my issue with Street Fighter right now. Now, moving on to 2XKO, it's a simpler issue. It's really just the roster, right? People like the changes. Like, they put out the big video that we did cover on the channel already, talking about so many gameplay changes that they're putting into the game, and they're very smartly implemented. They're definitely good for the health of the game, and it's just kind of thumbs up all around. Like, I don't know anyone who's actually disappointed on the gameplay front. They're doing smart and good things there. Of course, the issue is simply the roster. So 10 characters at launch, launching later this year, assuming, and 10 characters is kind of low, admittedly, and then you factor in the fact that it's a versus game, a tag game, so you're playing at least 2 characters, and then it just kind of seems extra low. Of course, one of the main criticisms for a lower roster count when you get a new fighting game is, you know, I paid XYZ dollars, and this is the amount of characters I get, and if you want to use this, like, I think it's very fair criticism to deflect is, you're paying exactly $0. You get all these characters for free, right? So, like, it's a free-to-play game, and the characters, you don't pay for them. You pay for skins and all that. So, 10 characters for $0, like, it's kind of hard to argue that when you want to look through it at that lens anyways. I think the very real problem here is just everyone feels like 2XKO is taking way too long to come out, right? That's kind of the thing. It was announced officially a very long time ago, and they've been working on it a lot longer than it's been officially announced for as well, and it's still not out. And the very real problem is Riot being Riot. You know, this is obviously a very high quality product, and they're perfectionists, and the problem is I think they've been trying to make this too perfect that you're perfecting yourself out of actually launching a game, right? Because, like, should it launch now? Well, we need to do this. Well, we can't launch now. Okay, well, how about this? Well, we gotta delay the game, so we can't launch it now because we gotta do this. Okay, well, we gotta do that, so we can't launch this. Like, the more you try to make it perfect, the more you don't actually put out a game. So 10 characters at launch is them saying, okay, we gotta get this out the friggin' door, or we'll never actually put this game out. That's how I'm reading it anyways. Pure speculation on my behalf, because I do not actually know, but I feel like they put like a roster freeze on the game, because the game's having massive gameplay shifts, and there could be a lot of characters that have like art done not necessarily like gameplay functions done yet, that are just waiting for the game to be the final version of the game. Because we do know there's characters like Katarina. Katarina was in the game and basically got pulled out of the game already, right? Because she just wasn't working in her current form. I'm sure they didn't junk the model and the animations, right? It just needs to be retooled for the game in its current form. Characters like Jinx, I can tell you, I played Jinx a couple years ago, right? Jinx is not this version of Jinx. Jinx was something else when I played her. So it's another character that was retooled into this version of the game. Plus all the characters we don't know about, right? Like, it's a free-to-play game. They're here to sell you stuff. So I'm sure the content pipeline is ready to go. Just they want to go with the most polished characters at launch, and then everything will follow after that. Now, it's certainly a wait and see. We got the new Alpha Lab, new beta test coming up later this month. I'm sure more will be revealed there, and until they say otherwise, it's still coming out this year. I hope nothing but the best for the game, right? It just seems like, once again, the case of they're trying to make this too perfect, and then trying to make it too perfect, you're never actually putting out a game, because it'll never be perfect. So at some point you got to realize we just got to finally ship a friggin' product. More to be revealed in time, I'm sure. And then moving on to our most recent controversy, and that is for Fatal Fury City of the Wolves and one Salvatore Ganacci. I'm sure he's a lovely person in real life, by the way. I finally watched a couple of music videos. They're actually kind of funny, so I dig it. But yeah, so people are mad. So he's our real life guest character. And part of the problem isn't just that he's a real life guest character, is that he's the second real life guest character. And unlike Ronaldo, our first real life guest character, even if you absolutely despise guest characters, I'm sure you can see the logic behind Ronaldo, right? He's arguably the most famous athlete on all of planet Earth, pretty big planet. He'll draw a lot of eyeballs to the game, right? The marketing sort of writes itself on that front. Like, it's the NetherRealm studio logic to guest characters, cause it works. Like, when Jason and Predator were in MKX, they sold a ridiculous amount of copies. When you had, like, RoboCop, even if you're younger and you don't appreciate RoboCop moved copies. I know 3 people personally who bought Mortal Kombat 11 because of friggin' RoboCop, right? You get a marquee guest, it moves units, business 101. Sure, cold logic to it. So Ronaldo, whatever. But then we move back to Salvatore Ganacci. And once again, I'm sure he's a beautiful human being in person, right? But he ain't no Ronaldo. He's famous by, like, me and you standards, right? But he ain't famous by famous people standards. This isn't like a Mortal Kombat Jason and Predator kind of deal. He is not moving copies of the game. People, well, okay, maybe there's like a couple people. But overall, people as a whole are not going to buy the game for him. So you take all the negatives people would usually associate with a guest character, you know, and then you add to the fact that the guest character isn't actually famous. Like, the positives you would put on a guest character aren't here. Like, I think gameplay-wise, I think he's funny, he's cool. I like him as a joke character. I like the fact that he can swim through the air. I think he'd actually do much better off if everything was the same, but he just wasn't a real-life person. I think he'd actually be much more accepted. Him being a real person is actually holding him back as far as being in this game. Then there's also the issue of how he was originally alluded to, with the tweet where we had Duck King sort of like soft introducing him before he was officially announcing, hey, I got a buddy who's coming to town, watch out for him, right? Duck King is not a character that gets a lot of like use officially in anything. And he is a beloved fan favorite character, right? So to see him at all, people are like, hey, awesome, Duck King. And then Salvatore shows up and, well, then it sort of creates the impression, even if it's not necessarily true, that he quote unquote took Duck King's spot. We had Duck King, but then Salvatore Ganacci shows up, and now because of him, we don't get Duck King. Even if you logic it out, it doesn't really work that way, right? It kind of creates that feeling, and then that's not a good feeling when people felt like they could have had Duck King, but instead we're getting this guy. But then again, there's a lot of Fatal Fury characters that are not in this game yet and may never be in this game. And then, okay, you lose your spot to Ronaldo, sure, whatever. You lost your spot to the big guy. You don't gotta like it, but it makes like some sense to it, right? But then if you want Blue Mary, another incredibly popular Fatal Fury franchise character, and you don't get no Blue Mary, but instead you got Salvatore Ganacci, that might not feel so great. Or say characters from the original Grow Mark of the Wolves, like Freeman, right? Freeman seemingly will not be in the game. I guess we don't know yet, but seemingly won't be in the game. And did Salvatore, quote unquote, take his spot? From Mark of the Wolves, we're only missing Freeman and Jae-hoon. We have everybody else. Except for Hukotumaru, who will be announced shortly because he was in the voice trailer. We already know about that. But yeah, so if he took Jae-hoon's spot, then hey, Salvatore's my hero. Good, get rid of that bum. We didn't need him in the game anyways. And of course, then there's the aspect too that the new owners of SNK apparently just like this guy, and he might just be in the game because they like this guy, which kind of is a whole hornet's nest of its own problems, honestly. It's just one of those deals where like people are frustrated, and honestly, at least from my perspective, I look at it like critically and like, you're not wrong to be frustrated, right? Like as it stands, it is what it is. And like, we obviously can't go back. Like he's going to be in the game. But from like a public perception standpoint, it kind of sucks for SNK because they just came off the second beta. The first beta was somewhat criticized. And I feel like the public perception after the second beta is very positive. They addressed a lot of the issues. People had such a better time with the second beta. Big win going into the launch, which is later this month. And then, you know, Ronaldo came out. There's ups and downs with that. He'll definitely sell more copies of the game at a minimum, so whatever. But then this one, it's harder to spin as a win. So at this point, like I said, the gameplay-wise, at least function-wise, he looks all right as a function in the game. So I'm just trying to take the best look at it in that way. He can fly in the air while swimming. Like, it's funny. But yeah, certainly mixed results on this one. It would be very fair to say. But now, across all these major games, all these issues, people are frustrated what's going on. Then you got to think, cui bono? Who benefits? Was this all the long con by Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact? 2XKO, tag fighter with 10 characters. Nen Impact, tag fighter with 16 characters. Showing up right out of the gate. Tekken 8 with its balance problems? No one's even pretending this game is going to be balanced. This is like... That's not a concern going into this game. They're not even going to try, right? And that's a selling point. So we don't got to worry about bad balance. How about guest characters? No guest characters for the game. How about that? You don't like guests? Hey, there you go. This is a fighting game free of guest characters. How about communication? Game's not even out yet, and we already know one of the DLC characters. Look at that. That's communication for you. Is this the greatest psyop in fighting game history that all these problems have been set up so wonderfully all at the same time for Nen Impact to strike with maximum value? Legally, I can't say yes, but think about it for a second. And if for whatever reason Nen Impact can't get it done, just wait for Virtua Fighter 6 to come out. Virtua Fighter 6, it'll save fighting games the second it's out. It's already saved fighting games, realistically. Any problem you've ever had with any fighting game ever, it's all fixed in Virtua Fighter 6, don't worry. But yeah, okay, like honestly, yeah, there's been a lot of problems going on recently in fighting games, a lot more than usual. There's always something to brewing. That's how the FGC works, and none of it's ever ideal, that's for sure. Bad times aren't forever. Like Tekken 8, I have full confidence they'll right the boat on that, right? The only issue is how long does that take? Even a quote-unquote emergency patch they're putting out for the Paul and Jack issues might take like 2 weeks, which seems slow for an emergency patch. Street Fighter will eventually get more info and the cycle will begin again. Guest characters, like them or hate them, like they're not going anywhere. We just kind of got a deal on that front. A few years from now when 2XKO has like 50 characters or whatever, we'll laugh about the 10 characters at launch. The big takeaway is the company's got to be more careful on a lot of fronts, man. Like, are we in, the new renaissance of fighting games, the new golden age of fighting games? Sure. Like, things have been awesome for the last couple of years. That's great. But golden ages don't last forever. Like, if you're older like me and, you remember the pinnacle of arcades, and then you remember all the arcades dying, usually after a golden age is a dark age. And I would like to postpone the next down cycle of fighting games into the future, as far into the future as I possibly could. So I just want companies to try to stay on tip-top shape as long as they can. And what usually solves a lot of those problems before they even start is, hey, maybe talk to the audience. You don't got to listen to everything they say, especially in fighting games. Trust me, we have some awful ideas sometimes. But, they're the ones keeping you afloat, so you be open your ears every now and then. That all said, though, my friends, that's the end of the video. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.